the speaker.
Okay, that was Brian Edelman. He is a trial consultant for the defense there, talking about how while alleged murderer Tyler Robinson, who was allegedly he killed Charlie Kirk, he wants to ban cameras from the Kirk trial. Of course, we heard from Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica, that she absolutely does not want this to happen. Of course, her late husband was shot on live television. But let's bring in independent journalist and Republican strategist Corinne Clifford and criminal defense attorney Aaron Reed. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. I want to start with you here, Aaron, just given your background in the legal field. Do you think that this will ultimately pass muster in terms of Robinson not allowing cameras in the in the courtroom, rather, especially given that we saw Charlie Kirk on many different platforms get assassinated?
Well, first, thanks so much for having me on. I do think that they will be successful. I think with something like this, it's so high profile, and there's been a lot of different judges over the years with different cases that have allowed courtroom testimony to be live broadcasted, and there's been a lot of issues with that. Now in the world of social media with instant reactions to everything that's happening, I do think more judges are erring towards the side of caution and allowing a defendant to have a fair and free trial with the evidence that's considered in court. So I do think that ultimately they will be successful based on a lot of the messaging and a lot of the imagery that was out there about Mr. Robinson and some of his political leanings. I do think it makes sense to ban the courtroom, or at least maybe ban live testimony.
Yeah, Corinne, what's your take on this? Because this consultant, Edelman, he also got Brian Kohlberger's legal team. He also worked on their motion to ban cameras from the courtroom. Do you think that this should be the case? Whether it will be the case or not, do you think it should be the case?
I think it is absolutely unacceptable to ban cameras from the courtroom. I think it's unacceptable to ban journalists from the courtroom. I think that this needs to be broadcast. I want to hear from Tyler Robinson himself. I want to be able to look in his eyes and assess the situation. You know, I was in federal court for 3 years with the J6 cases, and it's very important to have journalists and cameras in the courtroom. Federal court did not allow it, and it did affect the cases in a negative manner. 100% we should be allowed to have cameras in the courtroom for the Charlie Kirk trial with Tyler Robinson.
Yep. Okay, we will definitely be following this closely and see how it plays out. I want to turn to this. Earlier this week, Florida Congresswoman Anna Paulina Luna, she shared this cryptic post on X telling Senate Majority Leader John Thune to, quote, look into the allegations against one of your senators. It's very disturbing. We now know Luna was talking about Arizona Senator Ruben Gallego, and a spokesperson for Gallego denies any wrongdoing, telling CBS News, quote, these are right-wing conspiracy theories being parroted by a fringe far-right member of Congress. Senator Gallego has not received notification or been contacted by the Ethics Committee. Now, Luna did not give much detail about the allegations, but said some of them are, quote, sexual in nature, adding that Gallego was very close to Congressman Eric Swalwell, who resigned from Congress this week and dropped out of California's gubernatorial race due to sexual misconduct allegations. Now, Aaron, talk to us about where this case goes and both the legal and political ramifications here for both Gallego and Swalwell.
Well, from a legal standpoint, you're talking about crimes, right? You're talking about crimes that could have been committed, crimes that need to be investigated. And in order to do that, you have to be able to have a committee look into these kinds of things. And Congress, men and women all across the United States have been trying to push through legislation and different bills to hold other Congress members accountable. And I'm glad that Congresswoman Luna is coming forward with these kinds of things. It demands an investigation. And the whole point is to find the truth about what happened, regardless of whether that might be. If it's that Gallego did some wrongdoing, then he needs to be held accountable along with Eric Swalwell.
Corinne, the New York Times just did a deep dive into California Governor Gavin Newsom's book sales and found that they were a result of donations and bulk sales. So according to the New York Times and the FEC reports, Newsom's super PAC spent $1.5 million buying up copies of his memoir and then handed them out to supporters if they donated any amount to his political group. Now, that resulted in 67,000 copies, or 2/3 of his total sales. Now, despite previous reporting claiming the 91,000 copies were sold through organic, non-bulk purchases, talk to us about this, because it is clear Gavin Newsom is also having some trouble with sales here, despite the fact that he is hosting many different podcasts. He's out there in the media. People are just not interested in what he has to say about his own life.
Yes, I'm in California right now, and there is a governor's race happening. June 2nd is the primary. November is the actual election. No one in California honestly likes Gavin Newsom anymore. He's leaving the state. And yes, he does lie. He cheats. He steals. I'll say that. I'll take the full repercussions for saying that. You know, all of our houses, many of us had houses that burned in January 2025. Gavin Newsom was in Malibu, California last week for Easter Sunday, and one of my best girlfriends, whose house burned to the ground, she walked up to him and said, "Get out of California." And his wife, Jennifer, obviously tried to defend him. But Californians don't like Gavin Newsom, and he should not be running for president potentially in 2028.
Well, it seems like with these book sales, I don't know, I think his chances may be a moot point at this point. But Rosie O'Donnell, she shared her thoughts on the Iran war and President Trump's feud with the Pope. Here she is on TikTok.
We got to do something, America. Right? He just put out a thing that he's Jesus. He's threatening to nuke countries. Okay? He's digging up the White House and putting up a Putin-esque meets Saudi Arabia ballroom in our White House. He's arresting people, putting them in detention camps. In case of emergency, break glass and pull the fire alarm. In case of emergency, we should all be pulling the fire alarm, ladies and gentlemen. It is beyond the beyond at this point.
Okay, Aaron, besides the fact that she had some sort of weird filter on there, your reaction to Rosie O'Donnell?
Par for the course, right? I mean, Rosie O'Donnell has had, she's been the Trump derangement syndrome poster child for 20 years. And this is just something that she has to continue to engage in her life. Obviously, she's obsessed with President Trump and the things that he's doing or not doing. And that's something that we've seen from Rosie O'Donnell over a 20-year period. And I'm not shocked at her comments. I'm not surprised at her comments. She just doesn't like facts. She doesn't like to deal with reality. And she's living in a much different reality than a lot of the people that follow her. I can assure you of that.
Yeah, she's sitting up in her ivory tower preaching to us all. Aaron Reed, Corinne Clifford, thank you both for your insights this afternoon. Appreciate it.